Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of the Whiskey Diaries. My name is Martin Lang. We're here at Death and Taxes, and today we're going to be talking about probably one of the best Taliskers released in the last decade, the Talisker 57 North. Now, this whiskey is very, very particular because it allows you to really taste what Talisker can be at a higher ABV. We're going to go through a little bit of the history before we jump into the whiskey and what makes this whiskey so special. Now, Talisker got created in 1830 by the brothers McCaskill at the town of Carbost in Skye. Skye is part of the island regions, that comprises of Islay, Orkney, Jura, and so on and so on. So, the reason why I say this is because the islands gives a certain characteristics to these whiskies that it comes with a little bit saltiness, obviously. So if you hear like Vollen or Lafroig or Ardbeg or Jura or anything like that, you will always hear or you will always read that the whiskey has a certain maritime or like a saltiness to it. And this is because most of the distillers are basically facing the ocean to start with, and because of that they get basically slammed by winds and bring in a lot of saltiness from the ocean into the distilleries themselves. Now, the Talisker, like many distilleries around Scotland, they suffered through the history. After they got established in 1830, around the 1900s, they expanded again. Unfortunately, in the 1960s, it burned down by a fire, and then they have to recreate the pot stills from scratch. Talisker runs on a 5-still program, basically 3 wash stills and 2 spirit stills. The stills themselves are very particular to Talisker themselves. They have a very particular swan neck style that promotes a lot of reflux. And what reflux does to a whiskey is create a lot more character, heavy notes to the whiskey. Reflux, like we talked in many videos, is a way of like when the vapors rises in the pot still, it hits these different parts of the still, and it kind of like basically recondensates and falls down again and gets redistilled again. So that creates a lot of more ethers and just a lot more heavy notes to the whiskey. Now, Talisker, talking about the whiskey in itself, the 57 North is part of the Norwich Statements that got released by Talisker. The Norwich Statements, or NAS as many people call it, it's basically a revolution that started, not revolution per se, but something that started around 2010, between 2010 and 2013, in which it was basically at the same time that the whiskey boom was happening, in which a lot of distilleries started to realize that they wouldn't have enough stock of the age statements. A lot of distilleries as well wanted to express they feel it's a very political subject. A lot of people believe that a whiskey it shouldn't matter what age the whiskey should be. It should be about the flavor. A lot of people say that the age is really important. Regardless of which part you believe, the no age statements at whiskeys at the moment are here to stay. Many more distilleries start doing this, and Talisker is no exception. So they have Talisker Sky, Storm, Dark Storm, Port Rouge, and then the 57 North. And there's a couple of other ones that are duty free available only as well that are no age statements. Regardless of that, the 57 North is very unique and is really worth, compared to all the other North statements, it's really worth trying. The 57 North name comes from the fact that the distillery itself is in the latitude of 57 degrees north. It says actually on the label here, latitude 57 north, and then longitude is 06, 21, whatever numbers are here, that you can read it yourself. But basically that's the location of where the distillery is. Now, it also refers to the ABV that it's bottled at, which is 57%. This is not exactly cask strength per se, because they still diluted it a little bit, but they diluted enough to get to 57 degrees, 57 ABV, which is actually really high. And this gives you a glimpse of what Talisker can be at. And one of the things that is very interesting, or is actually very good to have at cask strength for whiskies at this high ABV, is that allows you to control the amount of water that you can add to the whiskey. Like in many videos that we've done before, anything that is cask strength, my recommendation is you want to try it a little bit first without any water, just to give you an idea on what the character of the whiskey is. At 57, it doesn't feel that strong. It is obviously a lot stronger than the 45.8 like many other Taliskers, but it can easily be drank by itself. Now, on the aroma, as something as high as that, I don't find the smoke as strong as it should be, but it's still quite smoky. Most of the Taliskers get about 22 to 30 ppm, sorry, 18 to 22 ppm. In comparison, something like Freud and Ardbeg, it's more like 35 to 40 ppm. So this one, I will give it probably, usually if you've seen any of our videos, what we usually recommend is you try the whiskey first, and then you give it a rating between 1 to 10 on how strong do you feel you are. Let's just say, for instance, I gave this one a 6. I will put 7 drops of whiskey. Usually I have a dropper, but with this little bottle will be enough. It just basically does about that much whiskey. That opens up, and what water does to the whiskey, especially with this high ABV, is just opens up a lot of the flavors that we're hidden behind the alcohol. Wow. Also, you can see that it's not chill filtered because the whiskey actually went a little bit cloudy after I added the water. This is normal, and it doesn't mean anything to the whiskey. It just means that the water is reacting with the oils, and it makes something that is called a luge, basically similar, which like ouzo or anise happens, anisey, when you put ice into them. They just go white. It's a great whiskey. It's a very, very grassy herbal style of whiskey. It doesn't have the weight that you get from the Talisker 10 or the Talisker 18, but it is very, very complex as well. The smoke really comes through at the back of the palate, but it's definitely worth having, and it also is very reasonably priced as well. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this one, guys. We'll see you next time. Slàinte ba.